Morning, Chris. How you doing?
Good morning, Ron. Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing great. Another great topic this morning. We're going to talk about doctor-patient portals.
Yes,
One of my
sir.
favorite topics. I love HIPAA. We live and breathe HIPAA. We've done over 1,500 portals, and over 300 of those are medical in nature. So we, as you know, live and breathe HIPAA. We've got a full HIPAA playlist. Chris and I have done over 60 different webinars on HIPAA just for you guys based on your comments. So please leave a comment below. Let us know what you want to hear about. This again was in response to a request. Somebody wanted to, they understood the concept of doctor-patient portals, and they know what they do basically, but they really didn't understand the purpose and all of the benefits. So today, Chris and I are going to just shred it, right? We're going to talk. So Chris, why don't you start and tell me what you think the true purpose of a doctor-patient portal is, and then we'll take each side and we'll rip into it and talk about all the different things that a doctor-patient portal can automate for your practice.
Absolutely. Well, you asked me to talk about a topic that I love. I think in general, Doctor Patient Portal is all about making things more self-service and automated where possible, while respecting and even proactively enforcing the security and the privacy and interoperability aspects of HIPAA, and just generally making it very intuitive and really kind of self-instructive for any of your care providers. And these could be, third parties who you're engaging or folks within a network that you've developed, as well as even full-time internal care providers. And then with patients, and making it so that to the extent that you have this already, the process is very opinionated based on your business practices and what you know works. And where you don't already have a strong opinion and sort of objective data to decide that a certain workflow is best for your business, we can provide a very opinionated approach and set of options based on our experience. And so you want to find, ideally with this, a vendor who's done this, executing on integrating different systems, working with the different profiles and types of users, because care providers tend to be very busy, and they tend to really need a lot of good integration to make it low friction for them to interact with patients. And then patients tend to, there's a spectrum, but they can tend to get distracted and forget about their appointment and need reminders about how to prep, reminders to fast before a lab, and so on and so forth. And so really that in general, and I know there's a lot to unpack there, but in general, it boils down to making it self-service and intuitive for all parties involved, and really making it as automated as possible. So how's that for a big, juicy start
That
for us
was
to
big
dig
and
into?
juicy. I was expecting something short, like it's going to improve patient engagement and automate and streamline practice workflows. But
Yeah.
yeah, that really got us into some of the topics because you kind of touched on some of the things we'll cover. So let's talk about the patient engagement side first, right? So with patients, and I'll just start with a couple of the little ones. So what I'd like to do is I'll hit on kind of the feature, and then I want you to talk technically about
Okay.
how we do
Great.
it, how it can improve and do things like that, right? So
Great.
let's unpack the big one first, right? We'll start right at the top of the alphabet, appointments, because that one,
Yes.
uh, it seems like, there's cancellation fees if they don't cancel within 24 hours. I was actually on with the doctor this morning, and my doctor just left the practice. And so they wanted me to schedule with a new doctor. And so, I'm already going through this myself, right? And I was trying to get into the portal and couldn't get into the portal, and they had to email me, and it was a royal pain. And I had to sit on hold for 20 minutes this morning, when if I could have just got into the portal, I would have had a notification that my appointment needed to change, and they could have communicated with me that my doctor left the practice and here's a list of doctors. Do you want to pick a new doctor? Or, whatever. Any of that could have been done, but I ended up calling because I had an appointment tomorrow morning, just for a simple blood draw, and I needed to know where to go. And I
Mm.
found out about this. I had no idea that my doctor quit and went to a different practice, right? So appointment scheduling. And, I mean, that's kind of what started this whole thing this morning. And I literally spent half an hour, 20 minutes on hold, and then 10 minutes with them trying to figure stuff out. When had there been a doctor patient portal that I had access to, I could have gone in and been proactively notified and made an adjustment.
That's great.
So, appointments is a big one, especially for me, because I deal with appointments all the time. For me, my wife, and for the family and all that kind of fun stuff. And with you with 3 kids, I mean,
Yes.
very well uh, doctors and doctors' appointments. I mean, it's crazy, right? So
Yes.
let's talk about some of the things that we can do. And if you want to give specific examples, like if you want to talk about like HCAT and how it automatically can pop up and show you on the phone, go ahead and mention some of those. And then in post-production, I'll go back and try to bring up some screenshots. And so as we
Okay.
talk about some of these, I can potentially show those on the screen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are great topics. I'm just making notes here. So, yeah, I would say in general with appointments, getting into some of the technical pieces for you to consider. Um, First of all, just the user interface and making it intuitive. That in and of itself is really critical for your users. And ideally, we're going to look at both sides of the equation. So we want to make sure that patients have a seamless experience that they're accustomed to. There are standards in the industry for UI, UX, user interface, user experience. And this is what users are expecting. So we really don't want to change everything to be substantially different than what they're expecting. And ideally, we want to be on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge, but the cutting edge of user experience. So just very intuitive appointment scheduling that's proven. Um, and then basically making it very simple for care providers, whether it's doctors, pharmacists, other folks that are going to be meeting for appointments. Um, Ideally, they have a very intuitive way to schedule their time, and this can be non-trivial. I mean, think about it. They might be working with 3 or 4 different programs or applications that they've got to fuse their schedule across, right? And be able to see what's available and coordinate that. So the other big piece is integration, making it really follow standard calendar integration capabilities so that we can have sort of two-way communication if desired, so that we can update availability based on other events that are going on for that particular care provider. That can be really important. Otherwise, the data can tend to get stale. Um, in addition to that, I think without going into too much detail, I'll just generally say, like you were saying, Ron, being able to remind and notify, there tend to be a lot of consistent activities that need to happen. Number one, I would just say a simple reminder. And the reminder would ideally include a link for the care provider for their reminder so they can get to the profile of that particular patient. This way they can prepare, they can have everything ready, they can get themselves into the right state of mind before that appointment starts, even if it's 5 minutes before the appointment. Um, and for both the patient and the care provider, providing different modalities. So this could be cell phone, it could be an in-app notification, or a text message, email, and in-app within the web application and beyond. And so these are all modalities that we can use to communicate with the users. And it really helps to get the right modality. So we can even have the system kind of learn what works best for each of the users, whether it's a care provider or patient. Where are they going to actually view the message? And where are they going to click on it and get more detail? And then we can use that as our primary modality if they don't specifically select one. But these are just kind of thoughts that we want you to be, considering. And in general, we also like to recommend for our clients, they really see this appointment as typically it tends to be a really key gate, and sort of key point for most of our clients who have some kind of a telehealth process, some kind of a regulatory step that they have to complete with a care provider. And so, of course, with that in mind, we want to reduce the friction, right? And
Yeah.
so wherever we can, where we can automate some of these things and make it so that we get self-service reminders and suggestions and resources to support the users, again, care provider and patient, this can be a game changer for your business. And it's sort of like this thing that I think a lot of business owners don't necessarily focus on enough. You may have already mastered this, but in general, I can say most of our clients haven't. Most clients that come to us just haven't put enough time into making it low friction for their users. So those are a few thoughts, and curious, Ron, if you want to elaborate on any of those, or we can switch to kind of the next topic, because it really plays into some of these next topics from those appointment features, right? Getting
Yeah.
into, reminders, cancellations, onboarding forms, all of those, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, matter of fact, I just had an appointment with my dermatologist a couple of months ago, and I got a text with a reminder. It said, press C to confirm or whatever, or reschedule. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yep.
And it included a link and said, before you come, since it's your annual visit, we need new forms filled out. Click here to go and fill out your forms. And I went, oh, that's kind of handy. So I clicked the link and it brought up the forms and it allowed me to fill them right on my phone. It took a while because on a phone they're so small that it was quite a few pages, right? It took a while, but it was great, and so I was able to fill out all those forms. So a portal needs to serve forms. Those can be intake forms. They can be HIPAA forms. I know every once in a while, like every year, if they update their HIPAA policy or their privacy security policy, they have to send out a notification, right? Well, you can send out just a simple text that says, hey, the practice has updated our HIPAA security practice guidelines. If you want a copy of the practice, click here and just link it and cover yourself legally, right? So intake forms, onboarding forms, consent forms, referral forms. What happens when Ron wants to get a referral? I wanted a referral to a physical therapist. And so my doctor said, it's in the portal. I'm like, I don't have access to the portal, right? Again, referred to earlier conversation. And so I had this form that was a referral to a physical therapist, and it was in the portal, but I didn't have access to the portal. And so the communication was out of whack because they were trying to email me via phone calls and emails. There wasn't one central place, a message center, if you will. So talk about the technical side of all of those forms, right? Because there's going to be the referral forms, doctor's notifications. When the parent drops them off at school, they need a doctor's notice and things like that, right? So talk about the part about the forms. Talk about both sides, the integration side. How do we get the forms? How do we secure the forms? How do we maintain their HIPAA compliance? When they fill out the form, where does the data go? What happens with the form? Does it just do a link to a PDF? Like, years ago, every time I went online, I had to download 6 forms, print them out, manually fill them all out. So talk briefly about the technical side of how we can automate the intake of all those forms.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say probably the first thing in general is a lot of times the forms are, like you were sort of implying earlier, PDF forms or, paper documents that the office is used to using or the practice is used to using. And to the extent that that's the case, ideally we want to move toward digitizing those. There are different flavors of this that we recommend considering based on timeline and budget. But ultimately, a couple of key points for all of the different flavors that I'll go into or types of approach here. Number one, we ideally want to minimize the amount of duplicated effort the patient or the provider has to provide. So wherever we can, we want to be thinking of sort of core data about that particular user that we can persist across all the forms if they want. So it's kind of like, hey, do you want to use the same shipping address as billing address? That same kind of thought process, but with their data when they're filling out forms. So that's probably pretty obvious. But believe it or not, I'm sure everybody's had this experience before. You have to fill out the same information on multiple forms so many times. So we really want to eliminate that. And that's really simple to do from a programming perspective. The other thing that I'll speak to here is that there can be different sort of modalities or forms of capturing this data. And it sort of depends on what's best for your business. A lot of our clients will work with us to get a HIPAA compliant CRM or EMR, EHR that has form embedding that we can use to have as the intake forms directly within the application. So
Right.
we're always happy to do that. We can also integrate from custom forms that you can build or someone within your team can build, and you can sort of self-service build those with a form builder. And then we can pass that data securely into a persistent sort of HIPAA secure vault, if you will. And so that's another modality for these. We also have seen some clients, digitize forms, and we have basically a form signing mechanism with a digitization that we can do for PDFs, for example, which is really cool. And for some cases, it's necessary. And so you just kind of want to determine, what is necessary. Do you need an online PDF signature form where you can kind of like drag the fields down or identify fields that need to be filled out? We can have PDF forms that get digitized that auto fill out the core fields, and then the patient just has to sign. And so there's a lot that can be done here. It really just depends on what is best for your business. For a lot of our clients, they will have a few forms for core information. They'll have PDFs that are digitized that they have to have filled out as PDFs because they change based on state or things like that. And then they may also have a few things that are in their CRM. So it can be a mix of all three of those. Yeah, so I think ultimately the big thing here from a user perspective is just being able to make it really seamless, but understanding that there is some amount of control that you'll want within your business and deciding what that is, because kind of the key question to answer is how often are these forms going to change? How often are you going to add fields, add workflow, add different forms of appointments and necessary intake forms? And to the extent that there's going to be a high frequency or number of instances of change or addition, et cetera, per year, it probably makes sense to go through more of a robust upfront investment to make the forms something your internal team can control easily. And so looking for that solution typically ends up being a form builder or some way to digitize PDFs. That typically works really, really well. And making sure that whoever you're working with can integrate that seamlessly into your workflows that are already part of the appointment process and already part of the emails and notifications and links that then take the user to those intake forms. So a lot of detail there, but the summary is basically make sure that the level of control you need internally is available and the customizability is there, and the associated training so your team can get up to speed and you're not hamstrung based on your provider that you're working with. So.
Right. So the last topic on the patient side, and we're going to break this into two sessions. So this will be part one. Part one is going to really cover the patient side, and then part two is going to cover the provider side and the integration. So to finish out the patient side, the last topic is really communication. And the communication of information is important. There's a bunch of different things here. I mean, obviously, we've already talked about reminders and notifications, updating insurance, contact information, making sure the doctor can get a hold of me, telehealth, when I need to actually have an appointment, telehealth session, when I need to communicate for a prescription request, when I need to communicate for a referral request, being able to have that HIPAA secure location where we can communicate back and forth, whether it's for refills, referrals, appointments, telehealth sessions, any of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the last topic. Is there anything technical you want to talk about? Embedding telehealth, digital signature for prescriptions, any of that kind of stuff you want to do before we tie off today's session?
Yeah, I would say, there's probably a whole webinar talking about telehealth that I think would
Right.
probably be really great for
We'll
users.
do one. Yeah.
Just yeah, just to give a kind of a taste of that. We work with a lot of clients who are worried about HIPAA compliance with telehealth, and there's a special section within the OCR about HIPAA regulation for transient data storage, and then also like approved vendors for doing telehealth. So this is great. There's literally content that the government has created. The regulatory body that's enforcing HIPAA compliance has written about this in detail. So we can certainly link to that in the description. Highly encourage you to take a look at the webinar that we'll produce in the future that will talk about telehealth. But a lot of common providers that we see for clients are Zoom and Google conference calls. There are really a lot of the standard providers out there that you would expect. Those are accepted as use case scenarios. And there are HIPAA versions of those platforms in most cases. And so you do want to go through the steps of getting the BAA and making sure that the full HIPAA security and privacy policies are enforced. But generally, we have a very turnkey option within our platform. And we would just encourage you to be looking for someone that has that with the standard telehealth options that are out there. So this includes, scheduling, managing, like you said, Ron, some of the different forms that are associated with it, signatures, and triggering the right workflows at the right time based on the outcome of the telehealth session as well. And so this typically includes not just patient workflows, but also provider workflows. So we'll talk about that next time as well. But yeah, telehealth in and of itself, generally for a lot of our clients, is kind of this ominous, sometimes scary topic. And we just want to encourage you that there are great solutions that meet HIPAA compliance according to the OCR and according to what they've, provided as guidelines. And so there is a solution to really make sure you're compliant that can be relatively turnkey. So we'll certainly unpack that more as we go.
Sounds great. Well, that ends today on the doctor-patient portal. We talked about the patient side and the benefits for the patients of having a patient portal. As you can see, there's a lot there. So on the next one, part 2, we'll talk about the provider side and all the benefits to streamlining the business. So again, thanks for joining us. Smash the like button, and we'll see you in part 2. Bye for now.
Bye for now.